Hello, my name is Thiago Monteiro, and I'm the founder of Toco Marketing, your outsourced marketing team. Today, I'm joined by Bonnie Hatcher, CMO and co-founder of Evelyn, a health tech company on a mission to transform care for women. Bonnie, thank you for being here. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of marketing female health tech, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Evelyn?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Bonnie. I am CMO and now co-founder of Evelyn. We are a women's health company focused on premenstrual conditions, so specifically PMS and PMDD, which I can explain further if you'd like.
Please do.
So for anyone unfamiliar, PMS is premenstrual syndrome and PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And they are hormone-related conditions that affect millions of women in the days or even weeks before their period. The symptoms range from pain, fatigue, to depression, and actually, particularly with PMDD, suicidal behavior is a very common symptom as well. So for PMDD, it's a recognized mental health disorder as a result of this severe depression and the suicidal elements of it. So the symptoms, as you can imagine, can be genuinely life disrupting, life altering. So our mission at Evelyn is to completely transform the standard of care for these conditions. So that's better awareness, more education, and we actually we've got a community, a supportive community, and we've got a clinically backed supplement that helps women to feel like themselves again.
Oh, that's super interesting and quite important, I'd say, especially on the female health. I don't need to tell you this for sure, but it tends to be a forgotten area of research or faced with a lot of stigma. How you, for example, as a co-founder especially, you need to go to investors and to board of directors. Obviously, investors that are gonna be interested in this type of business, they will be aware of the challenges themselves, so it might be an easier conversation. But obviously, you still need to open it up a little bit more. Let's say, make it wider the reach that you're going for. So does that change how we approach those conversations?
What's really interesting with what we do is that the challenge is not just awareness to investors, for example. The awareness piece is actually really important for people with the condition themselves. Women's health is so underfunded and under-researched and under-discussed. So there are a lot of misconceptions around. So, for example, if you talk about cycle or you talk about menstrual health, people hear periods, whereas we're actually talking about premenstrual, so pre-menstruation, the pre-period part. And the symptoms present themselves really, really powerfully in that sort of week or 10 days before your period. And then your period comes, and a lot of women go, oh, it's gone now. That probably wasn't as big a thing as I thought it was. You tie that into the negative language that is used around premenstrual conditions, such as being too sensitive or not coping. And you then add on to that, if people do realize that it might be a serious condition that they could go to their doctor about, often GPs are misdiagnosing or dismissing the condition, and that's compounding the problem. So although there's obviously an awareness piece, you've talked about how we talk about the product in general. Actually, the awareness piece comes to letting women know that this is a condition and that it could be something that they could get support on. But raising awareness of what the condition is first is a big challenge in itself before we even talk about what we offer as a service or as a product as a company.
Fair enough. That makes total sense. Thank you for that. So thanks so much for the intro. So let's go a little bit big picture. What drew yourself to the marketing and the startup space, and specifically on the women's health side?
So for me, I've always been interested in building things that matter. I've worked in startups most of my career, and in particular, a common theme throughout has been brands that are making a difference to people's lives. So the mission-led side of things is powerful to me and drew me in. And then why women's health, as I mentioned, it's one of the most underserved and underrepresented spaces. There's a huge an urgent requirement for support where women are still being told to just get on with it. So yeah, the scale of the problem is huge, and there's an urgent need to do something in this space. And so it's a rare opportunity to have the opportunity to do good and to build something that's commercially exciting. The potential to make a difference at scale is huge and exciting. And so it's two things kind of coming together, making it the perfect area to want to work in. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the answer. So going a little bit deeper into, the focus, premenstrual health. How do you, as you mentioned a few times already, it's such a underfunded, under-researched area in general. How did you go about deciding, okay, you know what, we're going to focus specifically on the premenstrual health and specifically on the PMDD and the PMS side? Why did you get to that point?
So our co-founder Jared, his ex-partner had PMDD, and so he was made very aware of the challenges and the difficulties that she faced and the lack of support, and he felt helpless in trying to support her with the condition because there wasn't information, there wasn't solutions. The only known solution as such is to get a full hysterectomy, and for women who are a young age, late teens, early 20s, thinking of having a hysterectomy is not an option, really. It's not a realistic option. So he then had a daughter and realized that nothing had changed since he was going through these conditions with his ex. So he didn't want a world where she's growing up without that support and where women's health is second to men's health, and that there needs to be a solution. So that was the driver for what we're doing. And Evelyn started out as a conversation for what women want to help. It wasn't product first, it was women first and what solutions are being looked for. And one of the big things that came out was validation and a sense of you're not alone in this, and this is a real feeling, and what you're feeling is real. So we have an online community which supports that, and we have heaps of information and resources which are all fully researched and based on researched, peer-reviewed research articles, which is so important when there's so much information and so much misinformation, that we can guide people with relevant info. And then while that was happening and we were developing a product as well, because the other thing that obviously came out was wanting to find a solution and wanting to find in particular something non-hormonal. So the cause of PMS and PMDD, while not fully researched, is essentially your body's reaction to changing hormone levels. So and the most common treatment is to give you the contraceptive pill, which is more hormones. So it's illogical to be treating hormones with hormones. And funnily enough, women want hormone-free solutions. We don't want to keep pumping ourselves full of more hormones. So that was a key driver in finding the ingredients. They would be non-hormonal and science-backed and do what they've got to do. And that brings us to where we are now.
How did you go about creating the community, fomenting the community, and making sure that's a safe space that generates content and interaction between the members? How did you, as a CMO, how did you manage that?
So before we launched the community, we deliberated about where to host the community, and whether that is something that we host on our own platform or whether we go to Facebook or other areas to have that community. While we would have more control in something like a Discord channel or something like that, we felt that, as with everything we do, we need to meet customers where they are and not bring them to us. So we use a private Facebook group for our community. It's more accessible for people than having to set up more accounts. Most people are more likely to already be on Facebook. So again, it's all led by what women want, not by what we would necessarily want to do as a company. And we have clear rules at the beginning that have to be agreed to. And actually, 30% of people who sign up to our community just don't even, I don't know if they're busy and they just haven't clicked through it, but one of them is ticking to say that you agree to the rules. And 30% of people don't tick any of the boxes, and so we don't let them in. Even though we look at them and think, you're probably fine. You probably here for a reason, but we can't let you in because you haven't ticked the rules. And that is so important. We also, the other co-founder is Jared. He is a male. And we asked the group, like, would you be happy for Jared to have access to this community? Because it's helpful for him to see some of the findings and the conversations that are being had. But it is also sort of a female safe space. How do you feel? And the community voted no, so we don't let him in. And so we really do lead by what the community want and encourage them to have a say in what we do. And we use their insight to shape things, and then we feed it back to them. So, for example, we've got a number of really, really informative guides on our website. They're sort of 50 to 70 pages long of really, really in-depth data around certain topics within PMS or PMDD. And we ask the community what topics they'd like to be discussed or what they'd like to know more about. And then when we've chosen that, so the recent one the latest one that we're working on is a relationship guide. So how PMDD can affect your relationships. And we've asked the community what they'd like to read about and what they'd like to know. And that has then informed what goes into the guide. And once the guide's ready, they will then have access to it. So it's a really full circle loop where we really do practice what we preach. We put the community first, and we base decisions on input from our community.
That's really, really great to hear. I mean, such a powerful, obviously on a marketing perspective, such a powerful tool to have at your disposal as well, because you can easily get and engage feedback, but also exactly. I'm pretty sure the word of mouth that the community is going to generate, because you're empowering them, you're respecting them. It's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for yourself. Could you share how big the community is at the moment, or?
It's a small community at the moment. It's fewer than 500 members.
Okay.
So it's an area we would like to grow. But as I say, we want it to grow authentically and naturally, and the support is there for people who want to be in there and who want to engage with others. So for us, the priority is making sure that it's relevant and the right people are in there. So we're not desperately fighting for people to join. They have to want to join and engage in the community. And you asked as well how we encourage people to participate in the community. I think if you force someone in or you trick someone in, they're not going to engage anyway. So it's a really natural growth in a really authentic way.
Yeah, quality over quantity, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
Because I mean, growth hacking thinking approach would be simply, let's remove the tick box they need to do, and
exactly,
more people.
Or let people in anyway that haven't ticked it because we want to grow that number. But trust is built and it's slowly earned, and you can break it so easily. And genuinely, as a company, we prioritize women's wellness. I think a lot of companies can give these nods to things. We do all the right things, but genuinely we are a compassionate team, and we want to do things the right way. And the only way to do that is to follow your values and stick with that. So yeah, the right people and doing the right thing over speedy growth will always be where you build trust.
Fair enough. That's a very, very good message. Now, talking a little bit more about going on the nitty-gritty of data and constraints. We see a lot. So we deal with quite a few health tech companies, and we see a lot of data. Being able to pass data around as it should is quite constrained.
Yeah.
But more recently, Meta introduced the cost setup around January this year, which limits the ability of any advertiser to optimize their campaigns towards lower funnel events. How is dealing with all those constraints from health tech, but also with female tech, which from experience, you're not only dealing with health data, but sometimes for some reason your content can be flagged as political as well. How do you navigate that, that storm, and making sure that you have enough data to optimize your channels, and how does those limitations actually affect the way you choose which channel to use as well?
Really good question. And I'm almost hesitant to say this out loud, but we haven't yet, touch wood, run into any major issues, which we're aware isn't the norm. We feel like we should have done. We've seen the articles, we're following the shifts and the trends. We know that because we are sharing health related content and we are condition focused, there is a very hard no of promoting condition focused products and supplements in particular. And we are currently flying under the radar. This won't last long. We're very aware of that. The moment it gets flagged, we have to then pivot. So we structure our content around support more so than symptoms, which I think probably helps us. But we're absolutely not naive on the fact that Meta are clamping down, and especially around the data, health interests, tightening all their policies. So the window could shift very quickly. And actually, I mean, it forces us to look into first-party data building of our own, exploring different platforms, having a stronger email and content flow. That's something that we're working on at the moment to build more. And so we're exploring other ways to keep the communication going. And so I suppose those constraints in a way force you to explore other options, force you to use that human touch and think of other things to do and align with where our customers are, which isn't always going to be on Meta anyway. So yeah, it slightly forces our hand. I wouldn't say it's a good thing. And I'm certain we have a backup ad account, but whether that can be helpful or not, I don't know. But so far, touch wood, so far we are doing better than I thought we would with the data, with the changes and policies.
Yeah. No, interesting. Probably the fact that you focus more on the support side than the symptoms. That's one of the key ways of avoid things like, are you feeling stressed? Yeah. So instead of feel calmer, you focus on the positive side. That we found that tends to allow us to run our ads for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And you mentioned Meta. Have you tried any other platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, or?
We have had challenges with TikTok. TikTok we found wasn't performing as well, but we also had more challenges around what we could and couldn't say and the disclaimers that we had to add. So we actually found the restrictions tighter there, and therefore not really a suitable channel for us for the amount of time that you have to then go to find workarounds and change things around. It wasn't working as well for us. So we're not on TikTok, but we could pivot there if we needed to. And what we are doing is focusing on a few channels well, as opposed to spreading ourselves too thin. Okay. One of my favorite phrases, if you try and catch two rabbits, you won't catch any. I don't think it's worded exactly like that, but that concept. So
fair enough. In Portuguese we'd say, I think you have the same in English actually, it's better to have one bird in one hand than two birds in the air. So if you try to pick up a lot of things. Yeah, exactly. Very similar. I know it's worded different.
Same concept, yeah.
Same concept, more or less.
Yeah.
No, that's super interesting. To be fair, we've seen especially larger, more established health business diversifying. So clearly, if you go on Reddit, if you go on TikTok, Pinterest, now you can see ads that. Obviously, I'm a bit biased because I work a lot in this industry, so I get targeted a lot about all of these different ads. But I'm definitely starting to see more and more UK-based companies advertising on channels that usually they wouldn't be there, which is an interesting.
I think they have to. I don't. Yeah. We often go back to kind of question what we're doing and think, are we on the right channels? But Facebook and Meta now is always going to be the best channel at the moment at what it does because it's the most established. So TikTok isn't there yet with its audience segmentation. It's not there with its finesse. So if we have to go down that route, or we have to go down, as you say, Reddit or LinkedIn or Snapchat, there's other options we could go down, but they're just nowhere near where Meta is still. So for as long as we can keep going with Meta, we will. And if we are forced to pivot, which I'm sure won't be long away, then we'll have to do that.
Makes total sense. Now, a little bit of on the gray area of advertising for health tech. So a few companies, no name names, they walk a very thin line between what is scientifically responsible versus what is not. Um, from what you said so far, I believe that I'm pretty sure that you lean towards making sure that the information is all 100% correct all the
Yeah.
time. But sometimes wording it differently, not making claims but insinuating certain benefits is a tactic that some people will employ. Is that something on your mind at all? Is that something that you discuss in the office? How do you deal with suddenly you have, let's call them cowboys, come in and
Yeah.
suggest these things, these strategies?
Yeah, it's a really important conversation to have. It's absolutely something that we're aware of, and we would support more restrictions and policies in supplementation because we would meet them. We have clinically backed ingredients. They are most studies. I mean, it's incredible the amount of, as I don't know how much you'll be aware, but most studies are done on men. Even on conditions that affect women, the studies are done on men because men don't have cycles, so they are more reliable for the data. But actually, that makes zero sense if you've got a female specific condition. And so our ingredients are all backed by clinical research, and specifically for research that confirms a reduction in a symptom for PMS and PMDD. So it's set a bar. Everything has to show a reduction in symptom, and we have to deliver that product at the right dosage that caused that reduction in symptom. So there are plenty of other supplements that will say contains magnesium, for example, but it will be a sprinkling of magnesium, not enough to make a difference, not any dosage level that's going to make a difference or has been proven to make a difference, but they can make that claim on their product. So if there was a more regulated level of standards, then we would meet that because of the level that we've gone to produce our ingredients, to source our ingredients, and in the research that we've done. So we really advocate that, but it doesn't exist. So yeah, there are a lot of brands that can make claims, and I don't think get scrutinized as much as they could or should be.
Yeah, and to be fair, what I found as well, a very hard part is educating the consumer about identifying what is correct and what's
Yeah.
wrong. Um,
Without bashing the ones that aren't doing it properly. You're trying to
yeah,
highlight something that people don't know is an issue.
yeah,
Probably a lot of people assume that if you say you contain this, you contain enough. Whereas actually that education around doing your own research. And I think a lot more people are taking the research into their own hands and trying to understand it more. But how do you know what source to trust? It's if you're doing your own research, which is why we can say that we've done that for you, but I don't know that enough people know that that's, we say that we're clinically backed. Well, what does that mean? Do people observe that and think, oh, other brands are using ingredients that might not be, formulated and developed by scientists and doctors? Well, would people think that's important? Or I don't know, but it's so important to us. And again, it all comes through to that, sticking with our values and doing things correctly so that we can stand by what we do.
that's a great segue to, I think, building trust as
Mm-hmm.
well, because that goes hand in hand, right? Obviously, you want to say you have the science backing, but at the same time, you don't want to overwhelm people with scientific papers, uh,
Yeah.
which are very hard to digest
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
any lay person. And after I spoke with some scientists, even for scientists, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing to read. So, how do you build trust as a brand to say, look, we have the research backing us. We
Mhm.
follow all these guidelines. We'll be happy to follow even more guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why you should pay us the premium that we deserve.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I'd say in terms of from a scientific data angle, we translate rather than dumb down.
Mhm.
So I think the personal element for me helps. I don't have a medical or scientific background, so I need to understand it. And so if I can understand it in the terms that we've translated it in, then I can assume and hope that others understand it too. And that's important to all of us as a team, that we are talking in kind of in understandable, recognizable language. We're not trying to confuse people. We want to make it as clear as possible. And clarity instills trust. If someone understands what you're saying to them, they're more likely to trust you than if they think, I think you're just saying a lot of words here to confuse me. So there's definitely how we relate the language that's really important to that. We don't shy away from the science. Just because there might be some complicated language, we don't shy away, but we make it understandable. So we use conversational language and analogies and visuals to bring it to life. So for example, if we're talking about gut health, we might say that 90% of your serotonin comes from your gut. It's your happy hormone. And so if your microbiome's out of balance, then your mood probably will be too. And that's how you might tell a friend. It's not going into the heavy detail like you might do in a science paper. So it's just making it relatable in that sort of way. And we're not trying to sound clinical. We don't feel like we've got anything to prove. We're just trying to build trust with clarity, honesty, and meeting people where they are and with what they can understand. So,
yeah, super interesting. Thank you. And more specific about, can you go more specific into like one campaign that you think that really helped, or one activity, marketing activity that really helped in building the credibility that you have now?
Yes. What's the best one for credibility? I would say we've got two really big campaigns that have done really well for us, and I think actually have done exactly that to help with our credibility. They're different. Which one? So the first one I will talk about is our sort of guerrilla style campaign. You might have seen it on our socials, where we go out into the streets of London holding up massive signs, and we put very bold statements on them, or ask difficult questions or challenging questions that make people think. And when I stood up in the street holding a sign about erectile dysfunction, as you can imagine, in the street it made people stop, but also when people are on their phones, when they're scrolling, they stop, they read, they digest. And what worked really brilliantly about that was that it angered a lot of people. And so our comment section lit up. The more comments that you drive, the more shares, more reach, more awareness you get. And we were essentially raising awareness of the lack of funding for women, doing so in a way that was perhaps controversial, but showed that it wasn't trying to sell any product. It was just trying to make noise. We want to take action. We want change. We want to see change, and we want to drive awareness. So I think if we were standing up there saying buy our product, we would have got very little attention and very little credibility. But standing up for what we believe in a space that is still taboo. I don't think we find it particularly taboo because we're talking about it every day, but we know from people that we speak to that they don't like to talk about their health in general, let alone their menstrual health and let alone their mental health. And all of these are, within PMDD, it ticks both those boxes. So we are trying to make the noise that maybe others would be lacking the confidence to make, and to inspire others to join us and make that noise with us. And I think that when you can see someone saying the things that you want to say that you can't quite find the words for or can't quite make enough noise for, it just builds that trust and that credibility because we're so aligned with the messaging that we are sharing. Admittedly, that campaign was slightly rage baity. It wasn't really necessarily intended to at the beginning, but when we started seeing the reactions from men being so angry that we dare suggest that women need funding as well, of course they went, well, what about us? And actually, it's a really good point for me to say, we do care about men's health. We do care about men's mental health also. But just because we want more support for women doesn't mean we're taking away from men. It's not a zero-sum game. And we just want more support for women. And we're demanding that, and we're not going to stop until we get it. So if that means we have to anger a few men and ruffle a few feathers, if it means it's working, then we will do that. So yeah, that was one side of a campaign, a little bit more of a online one. And then another campaign that we're actually running now, we've only launched a couple of weeks ago, is called the Limelight campaign. And the Limelight campaign is a campaign where we're supporting the PMDD project, which is the UK's only PMDD charity. And we are encouraging people to paint their ring finger lime green in solidarity for those with PMDD. And so whether that's whether you're supporting your friend or your colleague or your family member, raising awareness by painting. Lime green is a bold color, and since I've been doing it with mine, people have stopped and asked me why I have one random fingernail painted lime green. So it encourages the conversation and it builds awareness. And all of the profits for that campaign, so we're selling the nail varnish and we're actually selling a lime green pin badge as well, and all the profits go to the PMDD project. So it's not a commercially driven campaign for us, and I think that's where you can build your credibility in the area that you work, like the area that we are supporting. A lot of what we do probably isn't going to impress investors because we're not there focused on bottom line, but we're trying to raise awareness, and there's a condition to, we have to make the noise, so we do it in really authentic ways that we know raise awareness.
Thank you. That's really, really great examples, both of them. If you don't mind talking a little bit more about the Ragebait aspects, obviously it's something that it's out there, on the influencer community, is overused, and it's very subtle sometimes it's very in your face. For brands to use that tactic, it's a bit of, it's a bold decision, but you said that it was something that kind of fell off on your lap, more than, it wasn't designed for that, but as the opportunity showed up, you actually, okay, no, we're going to grab this, and because this may help us with our statement. Would you do it again? Do you think that's that's a safe strategy to do it? Would you ever think about the next campaign that you designing specifically to create some rage bait?
Yeah, I mean, it's good question. We are known by a few people as the people who hold the signs up. There's been people who have said, "Oh, I keep seeing things on my Instagram, and I read this really interesting sign that stops me to read it, and then I realize it's Evelyn again." And obviously that's a great place to be if we want to build awareness. So consistency is really important for that. It's not always to drive rage. It can be for support as well. We've seen that we have gone just as viral for a campaign talking about erectile dysfunction as for our campaign launch for our Limelight campaign, which is talking about very positively stepping into the limelight to raise awareness for a condition. And they have both on TikTok gone equally viral. So no, we don't have to build rage. It was, as I say, we weren't necessarily expecting the response that we did get. It's important, if you've got a strong message, to make sure that message lands in front of as many people as possible. So if we want to raise awareness for a condition that isn't getting enough awareness, or raise awareness for the lack of funding in women's health, and the way to do that is to create conversation that increases its reach and awareness, then we will be aware of that when we're deciding what goes on our sign or what our campaign is, because it's only going to do good for the awareness of the condition. So yes, we will do that, but we're not here to anger people. We're not here to divide people. Equally though, do we want to be talking with or to angry people who don't believe that women's health needs more attention? No. So if you want to rage, write your comment and it drives awareness, brilliant. But other than that, step away and let's talk to people who are really going to make a difference and are here to support the case.
Perfect. Really, really, really great points. Thanks so much. So a little bit on, just I think getting ready to wrap up a little bit more our conversation. If you were advising, a new women's health startup entering the space right now, what would be your top 1 or 2 pieces of advice for them to find some success?
I would say find your allies. This space can be tough, and it's come up several times. It's underfunded, it's under-researched. There is still stigma. There is still this kind of taboo. It's a taboo conversation for a lot of women's health topics, and it can sometimes feel quite draining having the same conversations and getting the same responses. And it feels like, how have things not moved on? How have things not changed and improved? And that can be draining. So find people who get it. So you'll find certain people, whether that's clinicians, creators, brand partners, investors, communities. And if they share your mission, it feels incredibly powerful. It makes the job seem very easy because all of a sudden you think we are in this together and we are going to make a difference, and it's a little bit less draining. And they're the relationships that will carry you through the challenging days. I mean, it's genuinely depressing, some of the content that we've seen on the more angry posts that we've created. Well, we haven't created the angry posts, the responses have been angry. And it was really surprising. And the whole team find moments where we'll sort of maybe screenshot a comment to each other and say, can you believe people are still saying things like this? And that is really difficult. But then you get the other people who will stand up within your community and stand up for you as a brand. And that shows that you're doing something right. You know, when the conversations and the viral content takes off on social media, and we don't have to reply to every comment because there are people firing up to stand beside us and come to our defense and come to women's defense and stand by us and make this a louder voice, then that's really powerful. And that's so important. So I would say find your allies, find who you can trust, and work with them and stand beside them, because you will be greater than the sum of your parts if you stand together. And what else did I say? Probably kind of in a similar vein. Don't wait for permission. We have had to do things that are probably some of the statements that we've made, some of the decisions we've made have been not explored, areas that haven't been explored yet. And in terms of research and data, it's not all there. We have to find it ourselves. We can't rely on external research for every single thing we do. So we do rely on our community, and we do rely on our own data and our own surveys. And we have to be the voice of the people who haven't got a voice. So we use what we can get, and we pull in so that we've got as much, whether it's data or whether it's from our community, and we use that to be our voice. And then we say what we need to say, and we say what we want to say, and we're not going to ask for permission to say it. We have to be the voice. So believe in what you've got to say, believe that what you're doing is right. Stick by your values. You can't really go wrong if what you're saying is completely rooted in your core business and personal, often, values. And then you can kind of shout as loudly as you want, because no one can tear you down, because you're saying it from the heart. And I think that's how we run the business. I think every single person that we work with in this business really gets why we're doing it and does what they do from a real place of honesty, belief in what we're doing, belief in what we want to do, and that it needs to be done, and with real integrity. So do what you do with passion and purpose as well. That's my third one.
Thank you. Very, very powerful messages. What is next for Evelyn? Any exciting projects or launches coming soon?
Yes, always, every day, every week. Startup life. There are always, there's always big things on the horizon. The main thing we're focusing on at the moment is our Limelight campaign, and actually we're just at the start of that campaign. There's a lot more to come, so very much watch this space on what we're doing there. We've just announced our partnership with Christina Goodsell, who was on Married at First Sight. She has PMDD. She's raised a lot of awareness about PMDD. She's a fantastic ambassador for us to have. When she was on Maths, the Google search for what is PMDD came up as one of the top 10 what is searches, which is incredible. It shows how much she has done for awareness of the condition. So to partner with someone who's got so much passion and energy, which is so similar to what we're doing. She's the perfect partner. She's so aligned. So that's a really exciting space. And we've only just announced the partnership. So can't tell you everything we have planned with her, but some big exciting things with her. We're in the thick of product development, and lots of new stuff coming there too. So yeah, Jared has new ideas every single day, and I have to push back on enough that we probably have a new idea a week. Oh, I've pinged. It's not ideal for recording. So yes, always new stuff, but that's part of the exciting part of startup, and that you can just pivot with whatever is the biggest next one to go down.
Yeah, startup lifestyle summed in a few sentences there.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, thanks so much. And if anyone wants to hear more about your work, about Evelyn, and especially contribute to the Limelight's campaign, how can they do it?
So on our socials, we are Evelyn,
Mm-hmm.
and evelynhealth.com is our website, where you'll find a Limelight tab that you can click on to find out more about the Limelight campaign. And look over socials, hashtag PMDD Limelight. Hopefully you'll see hundreds of people not swearing, almost catchy enough to get people's attention, but not swearing. Fourth finger. And yeah, we'd love anyone to join in with the campaign. So definitely get in touch if you want to join the campaign.
Perfect. Bonnie, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for going through community, going through translating science instead of dumping it down, how important it is to stick with your values. Really useful, really interesting. Thanks so much for your time.